just yesterday, and I believe, I believe the people who live in that house and the house next door are here today, but unless they want to talk about it themselves, I'll leave it to them to make their presence known or conceal it if they want. But no, it's still out there in Mira Loma, and though the lot has been subdivided, the little house that Stewart and, well, I suspect mostly his father and his nephew built while he was just walking around eating and bossing them around and saying, put down those boards and bring me my Coca-Cola or something, is still there. It's been stuccoed over and changed a bit, but it's still there. And like I said, it was strange. It was the place, and I can imagine everything unfolding there.
Did, when they subdivided that property out, did they inform the property, people that bought the property about that story?
Steve?
Well, obviously not, because the people who own it now really didn't know about it till we showed up. Yeah, I only found it because of matching photographs up with
So
the
those
area.
people bought homes on top of the property where the kids were killed, and they didn't know it?
Don't know about exactly where the kids were killed, but
Yeah,
it
but
was in the
still.
lot, yeah. It was in the lot, yeah.
What was especially chilling was one of the persons who lives next door said that one of the chicken coops that had been on the property, perhaps not one of the chicken coops where the boys were kept and murdered and first buried, had been saved and had been pulled over onto their property, and until they pulled it down a few years ago because it was in such decrepit condition, it had still been in existence. So the stage on which this drama played out is still there.
A couple weeks ago, the LA Times ran an article likening the Northcott trial to the O.J. Simpson trial. So I was just wondering how you tell us about that analogy.
No, it wasn't quite as crazy or as famous as the O.J. trial. It reminded me of certain other famous murderers who defended themselves, like Ted Bundy, say, in which some sociopaths seem to feel such a great need to dominate the stage and prove that they're the master manipulators who pull the strings, that they can't even let someone else defend them. You know, even if they're fighting for their lives, they have to be in control. So that was what it reminded me of more than O.J.
How did the law find out about him, and how did they arrest him? Did they raid the farm, or what first gave them the clues that something was going on out there?
Well, Jesse had called the authorities from Canada and immigration authorities. They went out to talk with Sanford and took him into custody, and then Stewart split, and he and his mother went back to Canada, and their pictures were in all the newspapers. Someone recognized them, and they were arrested separately but without incident. The scene in the movie where Northcott is apprehended when he goes back to visit his sister, and then there's this crazy chase across several rooftops, and Mounties are chasing him across the rooftops. He gets in a big tussle with one, and they fall off the roof and land in a bush. That's not real. That's, I think that's Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. But instead of falling to your death, you just fall into a bush. And, one other thing I should add. The poor Christine Collins clung to the hope that because Northcott's stories were so varied, she just clung to the hope that maybe Walter was still alive. And she never gave up on that hope as long as history made note of her. And by the way, contrary to what it says on the movie's website, I've not been able to find out when she passed away. She did not die in 1935. The movie ends in 1935, and says, she's kept looking for her son. I don't know. She was alive, I've just discovered, as long as as late as 1941 because she was still trying to collect on the money she had sued the police captain, Captain Jones, who'd had her thrown into the booby hatch. And he was still refusing to pay her, and she was trying to collect. But the movie, I'll spoiler here for someone who's read the script. The movie tries to imply maybe Walter Collins got away. I'm not going to give any more away, but this scene right at the end of the movie, which leaves this ambiguity open, where that came from, I don't know. No, wait, I exactly know. The screenwriter had seen the movie The Great Escape one too many times. And so he had to, and so the Changeling at the end turns into a remake of The Great Escape with little kids. So that's where the ending comes from. It doesn't come from history. Sir?
Did he fire his first lawyer? According to the screenplay, I think that's what happened.
Well, he had several lawyers, including a barrister from Canada who had represented him in his deportation hearing and who was there just as an observer. He fired all of his lawyers, and in the movie, he has just one lawyer who defends him throughout the trial, but he sort of like Alec Guinness playing, I think it was 5 or 6 roles in the movie, Kind Hearts and Coronets. In the movie, one character stands for 6 characters or so, and he's not fired, he stays throughout the movie. And, but that's what happened to his attorney, and then he represented himself. But if he hadn't defended himself, we wouldn't have had all this great quips and dialogue from the trial transcript. Zoe?
One of the things that I liked about the story was that he would sit there and say, well, no, I didn't do it, but then he would tell Sanford, well, how can he be testifying? He's an accomplice. What? You know, you can't have it both ways, dear.
Yes,
So,
well, that was one thing that helped convict him, that his behavior was just so erratic.
Bizarre.
Sir?
Yeah, how come the mom wasn't punished as capital punishment?
Yeah.
Well, Judge O.K. Morton said it's just because you're a woman that I'm sparing you the supreme penalty.
For what?
Well, sometimes male chauvinism can be beneficial. Ma'am?
You mentioned there were 4 victims. One body was found along a highway and the other 2 were taken to the desert and burned.
Well, no, Walter Collins, what happened was, this was a horrible bit of the story, Walter Collins was buried by Sanford and Stewart after they and the mother killed him. And about a week later, they uncovered his body and poured quicklime on it to hasten decomposition and buried him again. But then later, Stewart himself dug up the body, took it to the desert and burnt and scattered the ashes. But it was while when they knew that the jig was up, that he and his mother went back to the ranch, dug up the Winslow boys, the brothers' bodies, and then took them out to the desert and burned and scattered
So
their
they
ashes.
never really found remains as such.
They found little fragments of bone and hair and clothes and fragments of items that had belonged to the boys. And they also found patches of blood-soaked earth at the ranch, but they didn't have DNA testing back then, so they couldn't just do a blood test of the parents and then say, well, let's do a DNA test of this bone and this fragment of hair.
Did they try him in our local courthouse?
Yes, they tried him in, I believe it was Division 1, and since Judge Morton had a very peripheral association with Stewart, he recused himself from the case, and it was Judge Freeman who tried the case. And Judge Freeman was a very fine judge, and Stewart himself said, I judge at the end, I think you're a square judge and you've given me a square deal. But poor Judge Freeman was a very dignified man. But at one point, you know, Stewart's shenanigans got to be too much, and he just blurted out, "Cut it out!" And then he immediately said, "Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that." Please continue. I mean, even this unflappable judge had enough finally.